Randy Phillips, First Period History, World War II interview. Could you give us a brief history of your experience during World War II in the Armed Forces?
Yes, sir, I'll try. In 1944, I was drafted into the Armed Forces of the United States of America, which I was sent to Camp Blandon, Florida. Camp Blandon, Florida, I got 17 weeks ROTC basic training, which when the 17 weeks was completed, I was then shipped to Boston, Massachusetts, which was en route, Port Board of Vindication, which was en route overseas duty. Then I went overseas on the Isle de France, which was originally a French ship, but the Americans had in charge of the ship. It was a real large ship. It was about the third largest ship, I believe, one of the American ship. I left. I was on the water for 5 days. I landed in Glasgow, Scotland. We got on a troop train, went down to down through England to Southampton, England, which is a port. We got on a ship there in Southampton, England, went over to Le Havre, France, across the English Channel, over to Le Havre, France. Le Havre, France, I went up and joined the 69th. I went to replacement depot. The replacement depot, they sent me down to the 69th Infantry Division, which the 69th Infantry Division had never been in combat. So we replaced the 69th Infantry Division when I went in. Then the 69th Infantry Division had never been in combat. So there were only 3 guys that was in my squad that I replaced. All the rest of us was new guys from the state, replacements. So then we went from there to the front lines. We got organized, went from there to the front lines. After we were on the front lines, we went up the front lines. We relieved the 99th Infantry Division. But we were up in the Hurricane Forest in the secret lines of Germany. Then that was in February of 45. Then we were in the Hurricane Forest. We were dug in. A buddy of mine, we stayed there about 2 weeks before we even pushed off. We could see this farm village over across, probably a mile or so. We could take binoculars and look over. We could see the Germans. We wasn't in too close contact with them. We'd have, while we were there, we would have Germans to come down, what they call reveille every morning, to spray us with fire, with machine guns and things of that nature. We'd get barrages of artillery in, but actually as far as really combat, we wasn't. For 2 weeks there, we didn't do a great deal as far as fighting's concerned. We were waiting for the lines to straighten up. Of course, we didn't know a whole lot of what was going on, really. So, I was sleeping, there were 2 guys of us. We had a couple of holes together, trenches, what they call foxholes, where they had big logs and just had a peephole to see out, and we stayed in that night and day. We had sea rations. One of us go get our sea rations to eat to us, but there's about 3 days there we didn't have anything to eat. Our supplies were hard to get up to us, and there was about 3 days we didn't have anything to eat, only what we had carried with us. So anyway, we went, this sergeant and I slept together most of the time, or stayed in the foxhole together. He would stand guard while I slept. I would stand guard while he slept. So we became very close, naturally staying 2 weeks like that. But then we got orders, well, the day before we used to push off, the sergeant, he went on a day patrol in this village. He volunteered for a day patrol, went into this village. He came back, he brought some few German weapons. They said there didn't appear to be too many Germans in this town. They didn't see any. Evidently they probably hid if there were any there in this small farm village. So they came back with maybe, I believe it was about 3 or 4 light weapons. Then I think maybe a pistol or 2. So that was about the size of it. And I talked to him quite a bit about it because we were making our first attack then on the enemy the next day, next morning, a dawn attack. We'd found that out. So that was the purpose of the patrol going in, to see what they could find, see what information they could get, see what resistance we'd expect to hit. So anyway, he told me about it, said, James said, I don't believe we're going to have any trouble with this town. So anyway, I was second scout at that time, so we were supposed to make a dawn attack on this village. So that was my platoon, was to do this. So next morning we got up there, or got us out early out of our foxholes, and we started our journey. We started through the woods, and it was about probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning at that time, but we were making a dawn attack, just a crack of day maybe. So we got up pretty close to this area. We could see just the break of day, you could see the outlines of the first house. And between the first house, it was real cold weather. It was in February, and it was real cold weather up in the Hurricane Forest. So we making a dawn attack, and so just about day, they give us a go-ahead sign, just about daybreak. Just give us a go-ahead sign, so they opened up on us. The enemy opened up on us. Well, we opened up on what we could see. We couldn't see too much, but they just kind of opened up over us. So happened we had some banks we could kind of get down behind, and so on and so forth like that. Well, I remember one instance, we kind of got pinned down behind a terrace, and the first and second scout, they're the ones that actually leads. So I was the second scout. The first scout, it sounded like they were trying to flank us. So the squad leader, he told the first scout to go crawl out there and see if he could see the enemy coming around flanking. Well, he refused. He went nuts. He was crying, taking on. He just refused to move. He just lay there. So they said, okay, Pugh, you're the second scout, so you crawl, go around and see if you can find anything. Well, I thought I had to do everything they said, I guess, so I crawled around, crawled out there, and it couldn't so happen they wasn't flanking us. Came back. We finally got on up to the first house. They were just before we got to the house, though, I might state that they were field mine. The whole field there was mine. It was mine. But so we kind of worked our way through and got through lucky enough that we didn't hit any of the mines. Some of the boys hit some, but we didn't. We got up to the first house, and the first squad had taken the first house, and I was in the third squad, so the first squad, they'd really caught trouble. All of them got killed but the squad leader. Killed or wounded one. But anyway, I remember very well they brought a BAR Brown automatic down to me that shoots 20 times. That's one of the weapons that the infantry has, one of their automatic weapons. And I remember very well they brought it down and said wanted somebody to take it, asked somebody to take it. Nobody would take it. So my squad leader assistant squad leader I'd been sleeping the hole with, he says, Pugh, says, you take it, says. He's a good man, says, you take it. Well, I taken it, it had blood, brains, whatnot on it. That was something else when you start cleaning that off. And anyway, I cleaned it off, and then we'd only got the one house, and there were about 14 houses, I guess 15 farmhouses. And there wasn't anything else, just farmhouses there. So you had to go up an embankment, up into a little road that led around into the house, the next house. And it was, when you go up this bank, you got into open range where they could, right in the enemy, where the enemy could really get you. So they asked for volunteers to take the next house. So they were asking volunteers of 9, 3 groups, 3 leaders, to take 3 men each way. They were going around to the right flank and the left flank and through the middle. The BAR team was going in the middle. So they'd already got the BAR team, and my assistant squad leader, he volunteered, the one I'd been sleeping in the foxhole with, he volunteered to go. And so this squad leader of the first squad that already, all of his boys had got killed, he volunteered. So they got a volunteer for the BAR team. Then they asked for, they didn't ask for volunteers, they just said, you, and you go with him. So this guy that all of his boys had got killed, he wouldn't ask for anybody to go. And my assistant squad leader said, Pugh said, take him, he's a good man. Well, I got rid of my brown automatic BAR and just got a fellow's rifle. They handed me a fellow's rifle, said, you just swap guns with another fellow there. So I did. I knew anything about his rifle. I didn't have it zeroed in. He had it zeroed in, but not for me. I didn't know, I wasn't familiar with it. But anyway, they was to give us the go sign, and when all was to go, we used to all take off about the same time. And we used to go in about 5-yard intervals. And so they had a hedge around this, had a little bank about, approximately knee high. Then the hedge came on up and made it probably close to waist high. As most people know what hedges are. So this sergeant, my assistant squad leader, he jumped the hedge. I was going with the other guy, the other sergeant. And the BAR team jumped the hedge. Well, my sergeant, he jumped the hedge. Well, he got on out in the open. They let him get on out in the open. I'd got up in the road, and this other guy, sergeant, he'd got up in the road. We started around to the house, and we were only about 50 yards from the house. So they opened fire with a machine gun on us. And of course, when they opened fire on us, I hit the ground to the lowest spot I could find, which was this little bank, and which had the hedges around. So after I hit the ground, we come into hollering at each other, was anybody hurt? Anybody hurt? Well, I heard my assistant squad leader, sergeant, he began to take on, they shot him. But it didn't kill him right instantly. He began to take on and begging for us to come and get him. I peeped through the hedges, and he was just laying out in the open. I peeped in there. They had a machine gun set up. They had a trench out of the bottom of the basement of the house, a trench coming out of it. Then they had a machine gun set up right out. And all you could see of the Germans was from their head up, just about half of their head. They didn't have on helmets. All they had on was this cap. And sergeant out there, he was begging for us to come and get him, but there wasn't any way that you could get it. You were just exposed right. He was right out close to him. I guess he was within 25 foot of him. And it was just suicide if you tried to get out there to get him. Well, bad as I wanted to go out and get him, I couldn't do it. Well, it was real cold weather. It was in February, and it was awful cold over there. So we couldn't get back where we'd come from. We were pinned down. Well, I peeped through the hedges, and I decided I'd try my shot and trying to get rid of some of them. Well, I'd raise up and squeeze off a shot. I'd dead aim right center of the forward, but then I'd go down because I was afraid they'd spot me. So I'd raise back up. They'd either be that German or another German just right up there again, right there at that machine gun. Well, I shot about 4 or 5 rounds, 4 or 5 different times. Well, I'd try to protect myself. I'd hit the ground, so I wouldn't watch to see whether they went down or not. Anyway, I put me in my new clip. I was laying down on my side, down in this little gully on the bank. All at once, they just mowed them, practically mowed them hedges down overhead. Well, when they did, well, a little boy laying out the other side of my heart said, "Did they get you? Did they get you?" I said, "Yep, I believe they did." I felt that blood twinkling down my lip. But I reached up and rubbed it, felt. I said, "No, I don't know whether they did or not. It was so cold, my lip was just numb." So I said, "Maybe it didn't." So I realized then it was just a piece of hedge hit my lip and cut my lip. So then I was a little bit afraid to raise up, afraid they might get me. I was in about 50 foot of them probably. I decided I had hand grenades. I decided I'd just throw hand grenades. So I threw hand grenades. So then they opened fire on us again. But so happened I didn't get any of us this time. So finally they gave us orders to pull back. But we were pinned down, so finally we worked around for about 3 hours and finally pulled back to this house. Got orders to pull on back out from the house and throw a barrage artillery and call headquarters and get some field artillery thrown in. So we called headquarters and threw the barrage artillery in, and we started back in. Well, when we started back in, we saw white flags, and they began to surrender. We'd taken about 70-odd prisoners plus what we'd killed. And this was just our single little platoon doing this, which is about 35 men. So we kept, and so that one German could talk English. This German told us, we began to question, where did all those German soldiers come from? He said, well, new company moved in the night before. So maybe I've forgotten my sergeant that was out wounded out there, taking on begging for us to come and get him. He passed on out. He got where he couldn't. So I never did see him anymore. So then we were supposed to join the rest of the outfit, the company. They were on up ahead, so we finally worked around and got on up there with them. And to make a feeling pretty bad, I guess we came right back and dug in right close to where my sergeant got killed. He was still laying out there, still hadn't had a chance to get him up. Or any of the other boys, all the wounded and dead. They'd got most of the wounded and carried them back, but the dead they hadn't. But they searched all the prisoners, sent them on back to the headquarters. Then they carried us on up. We went on up, fought our way on up into the forest and set up posts and reorganized to get in there, new ammunition, new replacements, because we'd lost down about 50% strength. Well, my squad was fortunate, I guess, and probably had only lost a couple of 3 men. Some of the other squads had lost all of the men. So they were reorganized, shifting some of us around in the squads where they were they hadn't had any experience, so they got me to be a acting squad leader. So then we fought our way on up through to the Rhine River, close to the Rhine River, where we spearheaded. Then I was lucky, I guess, where I got a 72-hour pass back to Paris, France, off the front line, which I enjoyed. Then I got back to the front lines, joined my same outfit. Then we were spearheading on across the Rhine River. Went on across the Rhine River, on up into journey on up towards Berlin. Town, we understood it was Leipzig, Germany. We understood that we were to take the small villages on the outskirts of Leipzig. Well, we had been fighting for probably 2 or 3 days, just on a push, really. The Germans were surrendering a lot at that time. It was getting on over in April of '45, and the Germans were surrendering a lot, but we were traveling probably 75, 80 miles a day, riding tanks, trucks, anything we could ride on, and we just run into resistance occasionally, but this big town, the enemy were pretty well established, Leipzig, Germany. Anyway, the night before I got wounded, we had been fighting for about 3 days, so our company commander told us so, and whether this is true or not, I don't know, but I do know we had a hot breakfast that morning. He got orders to make a dawn attack on this next town, a little village, that they wanted to capture a bridge without it being blown up. Well, that's the word we got anyway. So they came on, and sure enough, we got a hot breakfast the next morning. So then we were making attacked on this little village about a mile away. We was through a wooded area. We'd been in riding tanks all the day before, and TDs, had the armored tank, TDs and things with us. So they got organized and give us how we were to make our attack, who was to push off first, who was to be the leader. And at that time, I was carrying a Brown automatic, BAR, which is a gun that shoots 20 times. So we went through this wooded area along the side of the road, just slipping through the woods. We got down, they told us there'd be an outpost there with 3 foxholes, told us to try to capture this outpost, which would probably be 3 Germans in it. How they gather all this information, it's beyond me, I don't know. But anyway, we got to this outpost. Sure enough, there were 3 foxholes, but there wasn't any Germans in the foxhole. It was about a little after 12 noon when we got to this point. And sure enough, there were a bridge there, like they had told us. Out across from the bridge was just open bottoms, open plowed lane terrain. There wasn't any cover or any thing you could get behind to keep the enemy from seeing you. So, but we had got to this point, and the enemy, we could see the enemy over there running around just like nothing happened, like there wasn't even a war. It was approximately 300 yards over there to the edge of the first town. So we got organized, and they had give us orders that they would to capture these guys. So we were laying there and trying to get organized, set the machine gun up, and they seen 2 Germans coming over that way, just talking, just walking along side by side talking. So they got about halfway over there, and so one staggering along behind. So they told us just lay low, and we just laid low, and they came right up to where I was at. We just raised up with the guns right at them when they got right within about 5 steps of us. Told them, come on down, surrender. Well, they just put their hands over their head, come on down, surrender. Well, this guy staggered along behind, and he seen what had happened. He turned and run back toward town, this German soldier. So this boy said, I'm going to kill him. A buddy of mine was on the other side, and so they opened fire. Well, when they opened fire, well, they give us orders to hit it, says they know you're there. Anyway, they had to give us instructions to just run and zigzag. That's the only way, best way to get to the first half. Well, we taken off. When we taken off, well, I'm telling you, everything opened up on us. You could hear the bullets flying everywhere. I got across the bridge and just got across the bridge and passed one guy. He was falling. I don't know whether he was hit, whether he got shot or what, stumbled or fallen or what. But anyway, got within about 50 yards of the house where we were going. Passed the next guy in front of me, he was falling. Well, I got within about 15 foot of the house. The house was on the left side of the road. Of course, naturally, I was on the left side of the road. I was getting close to that house I could get because the bullets were flying. And I just happened to look across the road from me, almost direct across the road from me. And if anybody ever been a rabbit hunting or anything like that, dove hunting, just take the gun and follow a dove up or a rabbit. He was following me up like that when I saw him. And I was in about 15 feet of him. Well, the only thing I knew to do was just whirl around, just turn around with my gun and try to shoot him. Well, I just whirled, but I don't know whether they ever pulled the trigger or not. Well, the first thing I remember was rolling down the street with the BAR flew out of my hand, my helmet flew off. When I stopped rolling, I could see back the way I came from, with my feet toward the German that shot me. Well, I didn't really know I was shot. It just knocked the feeling out, and I really didn't know it. So I started to get up. First thing that come to mind was get up and get my weapon and try to fight my way on in the house. So I started to get up, and my foot wouldn't carry me. I realized what had happened. I got shot in the foot, in the leg. And so I could see back where I came from, and there was supposed to have been a whole company of men behind me. Lo and behold, there wasn't anybody coming behind. They had turned around and went back. Well, it was only me and one other guy over there that had made it. And of course, I hadn't made it all the way in. This other guy, he was going in the house when I went down. And I was just at the corner of the house, fixing to turn the corner. So I could see back where I come from. So after I lay there, and I thought, well, the best thing I can do is just drop back down like I'm dead. So I dropped my head, just dropped back down like I was dead. While I was laying there, you could hear the Germans all around me. I couldn't understand them, but they were jabbering to me. And I couldn't understand German, but they were just jabbering. You could hear them reloading their rifles. They had bolt-action rifles. They were just all around me. And everything going through my mind, what am I going to do? I just figured I could imagine them bayoneting me. I could imagine them just kicking me around and capturing me, because I was right amongst them. But it so happened that we had armored back at this town we'd left from, and I could hear about that time I heard the tanks and TDs coming. I could hear our men hollering over there, we got to get over there, they may not all be dead. So I heard the tanks and things coming, so they came on. I could see them. They just whirled around and shot point blank into this town. And just about that time, our boys fell in with them, and they come rolling across the bridge. Boy, that made you feel better, though. So then they came rolling over that way. Then one of my buddies came by, sort of helped me down in the hole, and I crawled myself up in the corner there next to the steps. So wasn't but a few minutes then till the company medics were there. So the company medic, first thing he did was take a knife and rip down my breech leg and rip my boots off. Of course, I began to get in a good bit of pain then. And he just ripped my boot off. When he ripped my boot off, I wasn't bleeding too bad until then. I wore combat boots, and I wore them laced kind of tight, and I was wounded below where the combat boots tied. So when he ripped that boot off, I just blood just began to shoot out, just in spurts, just as like my heart was beating, it just spurting out. And he threw a tourniquet on my leg. Some of my buddies wanted to stay with me and assist the medic. The medic told them no, and the company commander came out and says there'll be medics take care of Pugh. Says we got him on the go. Says we got to keep him on the go. And well, I said, see you boys. So then, well, I guess it's probably 15 minutes or 20, something like that, till the company medics with a jeep, they come rolling over there with a jeep, and they got a letter and put me on a letter and threw me on a jeep. And they carried me back to I guess it's an old house, old barn, old house or something. I don't know exactly what it were. And after I got there, they were talking about, of course, I was in a lot of pain at that time. And after I got there, they were talking about the Germans about had it surrounded. And of course, I didn't know what was going on. I don't know whether they knew what was going on. And that they was pushing back, and they about had the place surrounded. First thing I knew, I didn't know what was going on. They put me on a ambulance, Army ambulance, and so went to ride. From then, we didn't know where we were going, what was going on, but where we were going, whether it's going toward the enemy or where, but we was hoping going away from them. Anyway, they carried us on to Pugh Hospital on this ambulance, and got us to the Pugh Hospital. Well, it was a big old open, well, I don't know whether it was a airport or what. Anyway, they was using it as an airport, and it was a big old building. Anyway, they carried us in there, and they just, I'd say there's probably 100 of us in there on litters, taking on, all of us taking on, including myself. And make a long story short, they carried me in the operating room, and I was suffering pretty bad. And I watched the boy. Soon when I got in there, they were operating on some of the boys, and had their intestines just laying on their stomach out and handling them around. Then turned over and said, put me to sleep. And by that time, they put me. I went off to sleep. I woke up. I was in the cast. They went ahead. They'd operate on me. I was so sick when I woke up. I didn't know who I was. So I stayed there. Every time I'd wake up, they'd give me something. I'd go back off to sleep or go back out or something. And I was there about 2 days and a night. And according to what they said, I didn't know how long I was there really. Then they put us on a plane, medical plane, and flew us, but we didn't know where we were going. They just loaded us up, flew us back to Paris. They'd taken us off the plane. I didn't know what was happening. They'd taken us off the plane there. Still pretty weak. Taken off the plane there and let us stay overnight. Next morning, put us on the plane again. Of course, they give us blood and fed us through the veins, things like that, while we were there. Then next morning, put us on the plane again, hospital plane. So of course, I feeling something better that day, and they put me by a window, and I could see out. The first time I'd ever ridden a plane, and I could see out. Get up high enough, it just looked like toy barns, toy houses, and cars, anything like that, trains. It just looked like toys. I could see them when they crossed the English Channel, see the water down there. Went on to, I don't remember the name of the hospital in England. They put me in pen traction with weights pulling two ways, one pulling straight down, one pulling sideways. That was my bone in my leg was part of it missing, and it was stove up, and it was trying to stretch it back. And I stayed there for 5 weeks, approximately 5.5 weeks in pen traction. And then they take me out of pen traction. I was put in a cast. I didn't know where I was going or what was taking place then. So then I went from there to, I came over to New York, Staten Island, New York, on a ship. I landed in Staten Island, New York. From Staten Island, New York, I went to Battery General Hospital in Rome, Georgia. And to make it interesting, I guess, on the train, I was on a hospital train from Staten Island, New York, came right through Gainesville, Georgia, stopped at Deep Hole there in Gainesville. None of my people knew that I was going through, though. How bad I wanted to get off that train, but I couldn't do it. So, sent me on over to Battery General Hospital, Rome, Georgia. That was in July 44. So then they closed the hospital over there in October 44. They shipped me down to Augusta, Georgia. So after I got to Augusta, Georgia, I had never received the Purple Heart. So after I got down to Augusta, Georgia, they were giving awards. So I had never got my battle stars, I'd never got my Purple Heart and ETO ribbons, a bunch of ribbons and things of that nature. So there were several of us that had never gotten their Purple Hearts and things. So they planned, they got it set up where they all that hadn't got the Purple Hearts and things issued, we had to dress in uniform and stood on crutches in formation, and they were the general present us, I don't remember the general's name, present us with a Purple Heart award, gave us a Purple Heart awards. It was kind of big to do, but just one of those things in service. And then I had several operations while I was there at Augusta, Georgia. And they got what called osteomyelitis, or bone disease in my foot. And I was hospitalized till, in first part of 48, they wanted to send me to Walter Reed Hospital and amputate my leg. And I kept going to 4 board doctors and this, that, and the other, and they finally decided to give me another operation. And at that time I walked on the side of my foot, practically on the side of my foot. So I told them if they'd amputated my leg to start with, I wouldn't mind it too bad, but if there were any way, I'd rather from not amputate. And they'd been that I'd already walked on it some. So they gave me an operation. It was very successful, probably the most successful operation I had while I was in the hospital. But I was hospitalized for 39 months in the Army hospital. Then I got discharged from the Army hospital in July of 48. And that's about the short history of it.
What is the significance of the Purple Heart?
Well, the Purple Heart is an honor. And to receive a Purple Heart, anyone must serve in United States Army or Armed Forces, and they be wounded or in service, in actual combat.
Thank you for telling your experience in World War II.